The smell of barbecue smoke and family disappointment hung thick in the air at Riverside Park. Our annual Torres family reunion was in full swing, complete with the usual mix of gossip, competition, and carefully staged photo opportunities that would dominate social media for the next month. I stood at the edge of the pavilion watching my siblings arrange themselves for what had become their signature shot, the successful Torres children photo that would inevitably end up framed in our parents' living room and posted across every family member's Instagram account. "Maya, step back a little," my sister Isabella commanded, adjusting her designer blazer for the camera. At 32 she was the eldest and never let anyone forget it. Her real estate firm had made her wealthy enough to afford the kind of clothes that screamed success from across a parking lot. My brother Carlos stood beside her, checking his Rolex, a gift he'd bought himself to celebrate making partner at his law firm. At 30 he'd achieved everything our parents had dreamed of when they immigrated here 40 years ago. Prestigious job, expensive car, house in the best neighborhood. "Actually," Isabella said, looking at me with that familiar expression of benevolent condescension, "step aside completely, Maya. This photo is for achievers only." The words hit exactly as she'd intended them to. I'm Maya Torres, 26 years old, and in my family's eyes, the one who threw away her potential. While Isabella conquered commercial real estate and Carlos climbed the legal ladder, I'd chosen a different path. One that led me away from traditional success markers and into what they considered a dead-end career in technology consulting. "Come on, said my cousin Roberto, holding up his phone to take the photo. "Maya works hard too." Isabella's laugh was perfectly calibrated to wound. "Working hard at what? She won't even tell us what her company actually does. Some kind of computer thing. Very mysterious." She exchanged a knowing look with Carlos. "We keep hoping she'll grow out of this phase and get a real job." Carlos nodded sagely. "Dad's friend at the bank said they're always looking for bilingual staff. Great benefits, steady work. Much more stable than whatever Maya's doing with her algorithms." I could have corrected him, told him that my computer thing was actually artificial intelligence development, that my company had just revolutionized data processing for Fortune 500 companies, that the contracts I'd been working on would transform entire industries. But I'd learned years ago that explaining my work to my family was like describing color to people who'd chosen to see only in black and white. "It's fine," I said quietly, stepping away from the group. "Take your photo." As they arranged themselves, Isabella in the center, naturally Carlos to her right, leaving space for successful siblings only, I checked my phone. Several missed calls from my assistant, 3 texts from my publicist, and 2 voicemails I hadn't had time to return. The camera clicked as Roberto captured their perfect moment. 3 successful Torres children, all dressed for success, all living the American dream their parents had sacrificed everything to provide. "Beautiful," called out my mother from across the pavilion. "Mis hijos exitosos." My successful children. The pride in her voice was unmistakable, and the absence of any reference to her 4th child was equally clear. That's when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a New York number I'd been expecting. I glanced around. My family was still basking in the afterglow of their photo session, passing Roberto's phone around to admire the results. "Hello," I answered, walking a few steps away for privacy. "Miss Torres? This is Jennifer Walsh from Forbes magazine. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." My heart jumped, but I kept my voice steady. "Not at all. Perfect timing, actually." "Wonderful. I'm calling to confirm tomorrow's cover shoot. The photographer will meet you at the studio at 9 a.m. sharp. We're all very excited about the Youngest Billionaire feature. The story is already generating incredible buzz." The words "youngest billionaire" and "cover shoot" seemed to echo in the sudden quiet that had fallen over my family's conversation. I realized they'd all stopped talking and were staring at me. "That sounds perfect," I said, still calm but loud enough for everyone to hear clearly. "Should I bring anything specific for the interview portion?" "Just yourself and that brilliant mind that built Quantum Leap AI from the ground up. Our readers are fascinated by your story, how you revolutionized machine learning while everyone thought you were just another tech startup. The fact that you've been operating under the radar while building a billion-dollar empire is exactly the kind of story Forbes loves to tell." Isabella's designer water bottle slipped from her hand and clattered to the picnic table. Carlos had gone completely still, his phone frozen halfway to his ear. Roberto was still holding his camera, but his mouth had fallen open. Miss Torres. Jennifer continued. Are you still there? Yes, sorry. I'm at a family gathering. Tomorrow at 9 works perfectly. Excellent. Oh, and the photographer specifically requested to capture some shots with your original prototype if you still have it. The one you built in your garage that started everything. Our readers love those origin story details. Of course. I'll bring the original quantum processor prototype. The one that proved classical computers could interface with quantum systems. By now the entire family reunion had gone silent. Conversations at nearby tables had stopped. Children had paused mid-run to stare at the woman on the phone who was apparently not who they thought she was. Perfect. We'll see you tomorrow, Ms. Torres. Congratulations again on making Forbes' youngest billionaire list. The story's going to be incredible. I ended the call and tucked my phone away. The silence stretched for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Isabella found her voice first. Billionaire. The word came out as barely a whisper. Forbes magazine? Carlos added, his lawyer's training finally kicking in as he processed what he'd just heard. I smiled, the same calm smile I'd been perfecting for years while they dismissed my achievements. They're doing a feature story. Apparently, Quantum Leap AI is more newsworthy than I expected. Quantum Leap AI, my father repeated slowly, walking over from where he'd been manning the grill. That's your company? That's my company, I confirmed. We develop artificial intelligence systems that can process quantum-level data. Essentially, we've created computers that think like human brains but process information at quantum speeds. The technical explanation sailed over most of their heads, but the word billionaire had landed with perfect clarity. You're a billionaire, Isabella said, and for the first time in my life, I heard uncertainty in her voice. According to Forbes, yes. Though honestly, most of that value is tied up in company equity and ongoing contracts. The cash flow is more modest. More modest, Carlos repeated faintly. Roberto was still holding his phone, staring at the photo he'd just taken. Should I take another picture? With Maya. Isabella looked at the camera, then at me, then back at the camera. We didn't know. You never asked, I said simply. Every time I tried to explain what I was working on, you told me to get a real job. My mother approached slowly as if I might disappear if she moved too quickly. Mija, why didn't you tell us? I thought about all the Sunday dinners where I'd tried to share my excitement about breakthrough developments, only to have the conversation immediately shift to Isabella's latest property sale or Carlos's courtroom victories. All the times I'd mention meetings with investors, only to have them dismissed as playing with computers. I tried, Mommy. But every time I mention my work, you changed the subject. You wanted to hear about Isabella's real estate deals and Carlos's cases. My algorithms weren't interesting enough for family dinner conversation. Dad set down his grilling tongs and joined the circle that had formed around me. Algorithms that made you a billionaire. Algorithms that solved problems people said were impossible to solve, I corrected. The money is just a side effect. Isabella was scrolling frantically through her phone. Quantum Leap AI. Maya, there are articles about your company. TechCrunch, Wall Street Journal, MIT Technology Review. They're calling you the most important innovator in artificial intelligence. When did this happen? Carlos demanded, his voice carrying that edge it got when he felt left out of important information. It's been building for 3 years, I said. But we've been operating in stealth mode until now. Most of our contracts were confidential. Government agencies, major tech companies, financial institutions. They wanted our technology but didn't want competitors to know they were using it. Government agencies? Dad's eyebrows shot up. NASA's using our systems to process data from the James Webb Telescope. The Department of Defense has contracts for threat assessment algorithms. Goldman Sachs is using our AI to predict market patterns. Google licensed our quantum classical interface technology for their next generation of search algorithms. Each revelation hit like a small explosion. My family stood there processing the fact that their unsuccessful daughter had been quietly building technology that was reshaping multiple industries. The garage, my mother said suddenly. You were always in the garage working on something. We thought you were just tinkering. I was building the first quantum classical interface processor, I said. It took me 2 years to get it working properly. Another year to prove it could scale. Then I started the company. Isabella was still staring at her phone. There's a photo of you here. At the White House. With the President. Advisory Committee on Artificial Intelligence and National Security, I explained. We briefed them on quantum computing applications last month. You met the President, Carlos said slowly. I briefed the President. There's a difference. Roberto finally lowered his camera. Maya, I'm so sorry. We all are. We had no idea. Of course you didn't, I said, but without bitterness. You never asked what I was actually working on. You just assumed it wasn't important because it wasn't what you understood. My phone buzzed with another call. This time it was my assistant. Excuse me, I said, stepping away again. Hi, Sandra. Maya, thank God. The MIT Technology Review wants to do a follow-up piece to the Forbes story. And Bloomberg is asking for an interview about the economic implications of quantum AI. Also, your mother just called the office asking if you're really going to be on the cover of Forbes. I glanced over at my family who were all watching me with new eyes. She called the office? Asked to speak to Maya's boss to confirm she's really successful. I explained that you are the boss. I think she's still processing. I'll handle it. What else? 3 more government agencies want briefings. Stanford is offering you a research chair. And Tesla wants to discuss integrating our AI into their autonomous driving systems. Set up preliminary meetings for next week. And Sandra? My family is going to have questions. Lots of questions. Clear my calendar for Sunday dinners for the next month. After I hung up, I found my family exactly where I'd left them, still standing in a shell-shocked circle around the picnic table. Stanford offered you a job, Carlos said. It wasn't a question he'd clearly overheard. A research chair. Full professor with funding for whatever projects I want to pursue. Are you going to take it? Isabella asked. Probably not. I like running my own company. Though I might do some guest lectures. My uncle Miguel, who'd been quietly listening from a nearby table, approached with a confused expression. Mija, if you're so successful, why do you still drive that old Honda? I laughed. The first genuine laugh I'd had all day. Because it gets good gas mileage and has never broken down. Why would I need a different car? But you're a billionaire, my cousin Sophia said, as if I'd missed that detail. Most billionaires don't actually have billions in cash sitting around, I explained. My wealth is in company equity, intellectual property, and investments. Plus I like my car. It's practical. Isabella was studying me with new interest. The apartment you live in, is that real or are you pretending to be modest? It's real. I like my apartment. It's close to the office, has good security, and I don't need more space. But you could afford more, Carlos pressed. I could afford a lot of things. That doesn't mean I need them. Dad had been quiet through this exchange, but now he spoke up. When your mother called your office, what did your assistant tell her? That I'm the CEO and founder of Quantum Leap AI. That we have offices in San Francisco, Boston, and London. That our technology is being used by some of the largest companies and government agencies in the world. And tomorrow you'll be on the cover of Forbes, Mom said, still processing. Tomorrow I'll be on the cover of Forbes. Roberto raised his phone again. Can we take another photo? All 4 siblings. Isabella stepped forward. Maya, I owe you an apology. We all do. We've been incredibly unfair. You've been viewing success through a very narrow lens, I agreed. But that's not entirely your fault. Society teaches us that success looks a certain way. Expensive clothes, fancy cars, traditional careers. My kind of success doesn't fit that mold. Carlos shook his head. Billionaire doesn't fit the mold? Billionaire who drives a Honda and lives in a modest apartment and wears clothes from Target, I clarified. That confuses people. Why? Mom asked. Why live modestly if you don't have to? I thought about how to explain this to people who'd spent their lives chasing visible markers of success. Because the work is what matters to me. The problems I'm solving, the technology I'm developing, the potential to change how computers think. That's what gets me up in the morning. A bigger house or fancier car wouldn't make the work more meaningful. But people don't know you're successful, Isabella protested. The people who matter know. My clients know. My employees know. The scientific community knows. Random strangers at the grocery store don't need to know. Until tomorrow, Carlos said with a slight smile. Until tomorrow, I agreed. After the Forbes article comes out, maintaining privacy is going to be considerably more difficult. Roberto was setting up his phone again. Hey, family photo. All 4 siblings. Maya in the center this time. I don't need to be in the center, I said. Yes, you do, Isabella said firmly. We've been doing this wrong for years. Time to get it right. As we arranged ourselves, me in the center feeling awkward about the sudden attention, I caught my mother's eye. She was crying but trying to hide it. Mommy, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Mija. Just proud. I'm sorry. We should have listened better. It's okay. No, it's not okay, Dad interrupted. We taught you kids to work hard and chase your dreams. But then when you achieved something extraordinary, we didn't recognize it because it didn't look like what we expected. The camera clicked, capturing a very different kind of family photo. 4 siblings, but this time with the real achiever in the center, surrounded by family members who were finally seeing her clearly. Can I ask you something? Isabella said as we broke apart. The technology you're developing, what's it going to change? It was the first time in years anyone in my family had asked about my actual work with genuine curiosity. Everything, I said simply. Medical diagnosis, climate modeling, financial systems, space exploration, transportation, communication. We're essentially teaching computers to think like human brains but process information at quantum speeds. It's going to accelerate human knowledge by decades, maybe centuries. And you built this in our garage, Mom said wonderingly. I built the prototype in your garage. The real development happened in labs and clean rooms and server farms. But yes, it started in the garage. Carlos was scrolling through articles on his phone. Maya, there's a whole Wikipedia page about you. It says you published your first AI paper when you were 19. My undergraduate thesis got picked up by the Journal of Artificial Intelligence. That was unexpected. Unexpected. Isabella laughed. Maya, you were publishing graduate-level research as an undergraduate? The math just made sense to me. I didn't realize it was unusual until my professor submitted it for publication. My phone buzzed again. Another New York number. Sorry, I should take this. Miss Torres? This is David Chen from 60 Minutes. We'd like to do a segment on Quantum Leap AI and your work in quantum computing. Would you be available for filming next week? I covered the phone and looked at my family. 60 Minutes wants to do a story. Isabella's eyes went wide. 60 Minutes? Would Tuesday work? I asked David. I have a family commitment Sunday that I'd prefer not to move. After I hung up, Roberto was shaking his head. Family commitment? Sunday dinner, I said. I try not to miss them. You've been coming to Sunday dinner every week while secretly being one of the most important people in technology, Carlos said. I've been coming to Sunday dinner every week while building a company that happens to be successful. There's a difference. Dad had been quiet but now he spoke up. Mija, can you explain to me in simple terms what your computers do? I smiled. This was the conversation I'd been hoping to have for years. Imagine your brain, Poppy. It can process millions of pieces of information simultaneously, make connections between seemingly unrelated ideas, and come up with creative solutions to problems. But it does it slowly compared to a computer. He nodded. Now imagine a computer that can process information as fast as current computers, billions of calculations per second, but also make the kind of creative connections and intuitive leaps that human brains make. That's what we've built. And this helps with what? Everything. Medical researchers can analyze millions of genetic combinations to find cures for diseases. Climate scientists can model incredibly complex weather patterns to predict hurricanes months in advance. Financial analysts can spot market patterns that would take humans years to identify. Isabella was following along intently. So your AI isn't just faster, it's smarter? It's not smarter than humans, but it can process vastly more information than any human brain could handle, and it can spot patterns and make connections that would be impossible for us to see. And that's worth billions of dollars? Carlos asked. Apparently, I said. Though honestly, the money is almost irrelevant compared to the potential impact. We're working on applications that could help solve climate change, cure genetic diseases, prevent financial crises, even help with space exploration. My mother was studying me with new eyes. You really could change the world. We really could change the world, I corrected. This isn't a one-person operation. I have an incredible team of scientists, engineers, and researchers. Some of the smartest people on the planet. But you're the boss, Roberto said. I'm the founder info. But the best leaders surround themselves with people who are smarter than they are in specific areas. My phone was buzzing constantly now. I glanced at it and saw messages from venture capital firms, university researchers, government officials, and journalists. The Forbes article hasn't even come out yet, I murmured. What do you mean? Isabella asked. Word is spreading in the tech community that the article is coming. My phone's been buzzing all day with interview requests and partnership proposals. Carlos looked thoughtful. Maya, can I ask you something personal? Sure. Does it bother you that we didn't understand what you were doing? That we didn't support you? I considered the question carefully. It hurt sometimes, especially when I wanted to share exciting developments with family and felt like I couldn't. But honestly, it also protected me. Working in stealth mode without external pressure or expectations let me focus completely on the research and development. No distractions, Dad said. Exactly. No pressure to go public before we were ready. No family members asking for investment opportunities or insider information. No complications from people treating me differently because of money or fame. And now? Mom asked. Now that's all going to change. Forbes articles have a way of ending privacy permanently. Isabella was scrolling through her phone again. Maya, there are already people posting about seeing you at the family reunion. Someone got a photo of you on the phone with Forbes. I looked around the park and noticed several people with phones pointed in our direction. Word was spreading fast. Well, I said, I guess the stealth phase is officially over. My Uncle Miguel approached our table carrying a plate of food. Mija, I hate to interrupt, but my friend Jorge says his son works for Google and they've been trying to hire you for 2 years. Is that true? Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, and Tesla have all made offers, I confirmed. But I prefer running my own company. Tesla wants to hire you too? Sophia asked. Elon Musk personally called last month. They want to integrate our AI into their autonomous driving systems. Carlos set down his phone. Maya, I need to ask this directly. Are you really worth $1 billion? According to the private equity firms that valued our company for the Forbes article, yes. But that's paper wealth tied to company equity. It's not like I have $1 billion in my checking account. How much do you have in your checking account? Isabella asked, then immediately looked embarrassed. Sorry, that's none of my business. It's okay. Enough to live comfortably and fund new research projects. I pay myself a reasonable salary and reinvest most of the company profits into development and expansion. Roberto was taking more photos, documenting this surreal family conversation. Maya, can I ask you something? Why did you never brag about any of this? Even when we were giving you a hard time about your career. I thought about all the family gatherings where I'd been introduced as Maya, who works with computers, while Isabella was our successful daughter, the real estate mogul, and Carlos was our son, the lawyer. Because the work isn't about impressing people. It's about solving problems that matter. And honestly, I learned early on that talking about technical breakthroughs at family dinners was a good way to clear the room. We would have listened, Mom said. Would you? When I tried to explain machine learning algorithms, you told me to talk about something normal people could understand. When I mentioned quantum computing, you asked when I was going to get married and have kids instead. The truth of that hit hard. I could see the recognition in their faces. We're sorry, Isabella said quietly. We really are. I know you are. And I appreciate that. But the important thing now is moving forward. My phone rang again. This time it was my publicist. Maya, we have a situation. Someone leaked that you're going to be on the Forbes cover. Twitter is exploding. #QuantumMaya is trending worldwide. I looked around the park, noticing that the small crowd of curious onlookers had grown considerably larger. How bad is it? Not bad. Amazing. But you're going to need security. The Today Show wants you for Monday morning. The White House called to congratulate you. And MIT is preparing to offer you an honorary doctorate. I hung up and looked at my family. We should probably leave soon. This is turning into a media circus. Isabella stood up. Maya, before we go, I want to say something publicly. She raised her voice so nearby family members could hear. I owe my little sister an apology. We all do. We didn't listen when she tried to tell us about her work. We assumed success had to look a certain way. We were wrong. Carlos joined her. Maya isn't just successful, she's brilliant. She's going to change the world and we're lucky to be her family. The gathering of extended family members burst into applause. My cousins, aunts, uncles and family friends were all looking at me with new respect and understanding. Dad approached and put his arm around my shoulder. Mija, your mother and I immigrated to this country so our children could have opportunities we never had. But we never imagined one of our daughters would become one of the most important innovators in the world. Poppy. No, let me finish. We're proud of all our children. Isabella built a successful business. Carlos became a respected lawyer. But you built something that's going to outlast all of us. Something that will help people for generations. As we gathered our things and prepared to leave the park, I noticed the family photo Roberto had taken. All 4 siblings, but this time with the real story visible. Not just successful children but a family that had finally learned to see each other clearly. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant. The Forbes website just posted a preview of tomorrow's cover story. Quantum Leap AI stock price jumped 40% in after-hours trading. I showed the message to Carlos, who whistled softly. Maya, you're not just a billionaire. You're a billionaire whose company is still growing. Growing fast, I agreed. We're expanding into medical AI next quarter. Then climate modeling. Then space applications. Isabella was packing up the picnic supplies, but I could see her mind working. Maya, can I ask you something about business? Of course. How do you manage growth that fast without losing control of the company culture? It was a good question. The kind of question I'd expect from someone who understood business challenges. Very carefully, I said. We hire slowly, train extensively, and maintain clear principles about what kind of company we want to be. Success without values is just sophisticated failure. That's going in my next motivational speech to my real estate team, Isabella said with a smile. As we walked toward the parking lot, surrounded by family members who were still processing the day's revelations, my phone rang one more time. Miss Torres? This is Anderson Cooper's office. We'd like to have you on Anderson Cooper 360 to discuss the implications of quantum AI for society. Would Thursday evening work? I looked at my family, my proud parents, my amazed siblings, my extended family who were all pulling out their phones to Google Quantum Leap AI and quantum computing. Thursday works, I said. But I'll need to bring my quantum processor prototype for the demonstration. After I hung up, Roberto raised his camera one more time. One last photo, he asked. The Torres family on the day everything changed. This time nobody questioned my place in the center. This time the photo captured not just successful siblings, but a family that had finally learned the difference between achievement and recognition, between substance and appearance, between being important and being seen as important. As we posed for that final shot, I thought about tomorrow's Forbes cover, next week's interviews, and the endless stream of opportunities that would follow. But mostly I thought about Monday morning when I'd return to my lab and continue working on the problems that really mattered. Because that's what success actually looks like. Not the photo but the work that makes the photo possible. The camera clicked, capturing the moment when my family finally saw me for who I'd always been. Not the unsuccessful daughter who worked with computers, but the scientist who was quietly changing the world, one quantum calculation at a time.